gon' get it right. We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting a movement of people. It's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak, the power's even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the poor where the business is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. With you and God in time, my best align.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
How can I be a better father, son, a better grandson, honoring Fannie Lou's and the Fred Hamptons, the Harriets, the Chariots, the
You are listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and White House correspondent. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm in touch until you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. All you got to do is type in Dr. Nii-Q. That's DRNIIQ. And you can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on Spill. You can follow me on Threads. You can follow me everywhere. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand. You know, walking across the street, round the block, in the grocery store. You can just carry us everywhere you go by downloading the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand. Last but not least, be sure to subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. I want to apologize in advance if I sound a little nasally today. These allergies are whipping up here in DC, and they got me. Have they got you? Because they getting me. And so I'm going to power through. But it's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, CBS News is reporting that the U.S. is seeking deportation deal with far-flung countries like Angola and Equatorial Guinea. You can't make this stuff up. The Trump administration has approached far-flung countries to aid its mass deportations efforts, asking nations like Angola and Equatorial Guinea to accept migrants who are not their citizens. This, according to internal federal government documents obtained by CBS News. The talks are a part of an intense diplomatic campaign by the Trump administration to convince as many nations as possible, including those with controversial human rights records, to receive deportees from the U.S., such as migrants whose home countries won't take them back. The administration has already brokered agreements with several Latin American countries willing to accept migrants who are not their own. In February, the U.S. deported hundreds of African and Asian migrants to Costa Rica and Panama. And in March, the Trump administration sent nearly 300 Venezuelans accused of being gang members to El Salvador, which imprisoned them at an infamous mega prison. Guatemala has agreed to take in third country deportees from the U.S. and the Mexican government under a deal that preceded President Trump's second term has been receiving migrants from other Latin American countries like Venezuela caught crossing the U.S. border. What also caught my attention, Rwanda's in the mix. The Eastern Hemisphere countries that the Trump administration has identified as places that could potentially accept deportations of third country nationals include Angola, Benin, Equatorial Guinea, Libya, Moldova, and Rwanda. According to these internal documents, the U.S. has yet to announce any formal deal with these nations. The Wall Street Journal reported on the internal talks with some of these countries back in April, but the negotiations with Angola and Equatorial Guinea have not been previously reported. And so they over here trying to send people back to Africa. that ain't got no business being in Africa. That's what's going on. And my goodness, I mean, what makes this so tragic is that the Trump administration is doing this and turning a blind eye to due process. To due process. I'm sure many people would agree that if someone is here in this country and if they present a threat to our communities, right, that should be addressed. But we'd agreed that we're a nation of laws. And as soon as we devolve into a nation where we just pick people up off of suspicions that they're a part of gangs, suspicions that they are violent, and when we start just sort of picking people up willy-nilly and putting them on planes and sending them to some other part of the world where their family may never hear from them again or see them again, is that really who we want to be? I get people may be frustrated with our immigration system, but is that really the way we want to handle this? So that is what's going on. It is worth noting. In other news, Sean Diddy Combs, his trial is set to begin. The judge is already questioning potential jurors. USA Today reporting that the criminal trial of Sean Diddy Combs, it kicked off with jury selection in Manhattan as the one-time cultural mogul faces a shocking federal sex crime charges in a case expected to stretch on for months. Several dozen potential jurors were brought into the courtroom one by one and questioned by Judge Arun Subramanian, the prosecution and the defense, to determine whether they're qualified to serve on Combs' jury. Now, as jury selection got underway, prospective jurors said that they had heard news about the allegations against the hip hop star, seen a video of him allegedly assaulting a woman, and even heard a comedian joke about the baby oil authorities said that they found in his residence. Jurors were given a list of people and places related to the defendant in some way, including Hollywood and music industry celebrities such as Michael B. Jordan, Kid Cudi, Michelle Williams, Mike Myers, and others. Combs, 55 years old, who at one time was among the most powerful figures in the music industry, has experienced a sharp fall from grace after facing a bevy of lawsuits and criminal charges accusing him of rape and sexual assault. We will continue to follow this case. This is a big case. There's major implications. It's not just Diddy on trial. I think to some people, they may say aspects of hip hop culture are on trial. Others might say that masculinity is on trial. There are folks that might say that Me Too is on trial. And so we're going to continue to follow this case as it develops. Finally, the Met Gala. The Met Gala is underway. Have you seen some of these looks on social media? I think I saw, before we went on air, I think I saw Coleman Domingo looking like the king he is. And I saw Scott Evans, Access Hollywood Scott Evans. He looked like a dream. He looked amazing on the Met Gala carpet. Tailoring Black style. That's the theme of the 2025 Met Gala. And here's what you may not know that you probably should know. At the end of the day, this is a fundraising event. On the first Monday of every May, the rich, the famous, and the well-dressed gather in New York City for the Met Gala, and the evening is a benefit for the Metropolitan Museum of Art Costume Institute. Tickets are mighty pricey, for a cost reported at $75,000. The guest list is hyper exclusive, and the goings-on are secret thanks to a strict no phone policy behind the doors. And for celebrities, it's really an opportunity to show off exquisite and often ostentatious fashions. For the rest of us, it's a chance just to take in and critique their interpretation of the night's theme. And so I have a feeling we'll be digging into this throughout the week. But when we come forward, I'm looking forward to being in conversation with Katie Bo Lillis. She has a book that's out that is actually on sale starting tomorrow. It's called The Death of a Racehorse, an American Story. We're going to tell you all about that, and we're going to meet her when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. If you missed our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall, the Altadena Eden Fire, 100 Days and Counting, you missed an evening of reverence, reflection, and reality.
You got to live in the reality because this is it. Every day you wake up, is this my life? Don't stay in denial because yes, it is. Don't stay in bargaining where you're praying for a miracle. And if it wouldn't have happened, then this is what I would have done. It did.
Our panel participants kept it real. Really real.
I think, number one, it's amazing to me how we ignore systemic racism in our community. And as a people, we've apologized for so much. But when will we stop apologizing for what we have paid for? Because the truth of the matter is we paid for this.
You can always count on KBLA Talk 1580 to give it to you straight, no chaser. When you love folk, you tell them the truth. Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
The following is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways. Airfare not included. See FVGradio.com for complete details. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get your complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. Proceeding is not sponsored by this station or its affiliates.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LAC-JCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The Comedy Connection series featuring KBLA's Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady. We're going to transform relationship disasters into stand-up material live at Inglewood's Miracle Theater on May 31st at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My clinical team will disclose all of your dating woes, while the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady, has hand-selected supremely talented comedians to roast all of our tragic relationship choices. I dare you to bring your ex's phone number, because Ray, he's going to text it live, and the crowd will be sourcing emojis. Tickets are moving swiftly, so don't hesitate to grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before I diagnose your dating history as a pre-existing condition.
Hit me! National News, The Consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. I'm really delighted to welcome my next guest, CNN's Katie Bo Lillis, who is the author of Death of a Racehorse, an American Story, on sale starting tomorrow, May 6th. Welcome to the show, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And, this is a very interesting story. And for folks who are looking for a little bit of respite from the crazy headlines that are coming out of Washington, D.C., where I'm at today, this book really offers us entry into a whole nother world. I mean, most of us, when we think of, horse racing, we think of the Kentucky Derby. But there's sort of an underbelly to the Kentucky Derby. There's an underbelly to the world of horse race, no?
Well, there's a whole industry outside of the Kentucky Derby, I think is maybe the way I would phrase it, more than underbelly. There's 30,000 horse races run across the United States in a given year. And all of the people that are running in those, races are, they are trying to make a living running horses. They're running horses because they enjoy the sport of it. Not all of those horses are going to go on and ultimately compete in the Kentucky Derby, right? This is a huge, huge industry that exists sort of totally independent of that day in a lot of ways. And so I used to work in this business. And so I was always very sort of fascinated by the business of the industry, and the way that this sport sort of exists on a 365-day-a-year basis.
I mean, what's also so interesting to me is that you delve into the practice of doping. When I first heard of doping, I heard about it in relation to, professional baseball players and other athletes and, Olympians. But you actually remind us that the term doping originated in horse racing around the turn of the century.
Right around the time that the hypodermic needle came into being, came into existence, is about the same time that the term doping became sort of a neologism that started to appear in literature in association with horse racing. So this idea, I think there's this idea that doping is sort of somehow new or some kind of brand new technological development, and it's not true, both in human and equine sports. And in fact, what I think is really fascinating is once upon a time in human sports around that era, doping wasn't even necessarily seen as a bad thing, right? For human athletes who used to take like literal strychnine as like a stimulant, it was seen as commitment to the craft. In racing at that time, the bigger concern was actually not giving your horse a substance to make it run faster. The expectation was that you would want your horse to run as fast as possible. It was giving another person's horse a substance to slow it down, to stop it. That was sort of the big concern. But of course, gradually, as years have gone on, the concern has become, are people clandestinely giving substances to horses that would give them an unfair edge that bettors don't know about and that the competition doesn't know about? And this is something that the sport has over the years worked really, really hard to crack down on, both kind of the illegal clandestine stuff, and like other major sports, they've sought to crack down on what is actually allowed. Steroids, for example, anabolic steroids, no longer allowed in horse racing as of 2008.
And so, I mean, obviously you are a treasure trove of information about this world. And, I thought, I knew what anybody needed to know about the world of horse racing. And what is so incredible about your book that's coming out tomorrow is that it really reminds us that we're only scratching the surface in terms of what, everyday people know about this world. What attracted you to the world of horse racing? Talk to us a little bit about your origin story in the sport.
Well, I have been in love with the sport since I was a teenager, really. That was my summer job when I was in high school. Was I would get up at 3:30 in the morning in the summertime when I was 16, which tells you how much I liked this.
A 16-year-old is getting up that early in the morning for anything.
In the morning. I know. And you want to hear something really nuts? My poor mother, when I was 15 and only had a learner's permit, she would drive me to the track. So that that is love. I'm not doing that for my kid. I don't get up at 3:30 anymore.
I'm with you.
But I would go and I would hand walk the horses at the racetrack after they had exercised to cool them down. And my career really took off. From there, I worked in the business into my mid-20s, and I just always loved two things. I loved the animal. The thoroughbred racehorse is just a magnificent, noble, sentient, intelligent creature. And I loved sort of trying to get inside of his mind and working around him. And I loved the sport. I loved all of these really wonderful horsemen that I came to know who did a really wonderful and responsible job in trying to prepare these horses, these athletes, to compete to the best of their ability. When I got out of the sport, in my 20s and kind of going into the kind of late 20 teens, I started to see a number of headlines about horses that were suffering fatal injuries while they were racing and training. And that was something I'd been aware of that had that happened in the sport. It had happened. It's happened for decades. It wasn't a new phenomenon. But there is an increasing discomfort in the American public about the way that these animals were used and the death toll that they were seeing on the racetrack. And it really reflected to me what I thought was kind of a changing dynamic where Americans expected more of sports that use animals than they used to in the past. We don't see dog racing anymore. Circus Barnum and Bailey no longer use animals in their acts, right? We've seen whale shows, right, go by the wayside because of a decline in public support for them. And I wanted to explore some of the kind of big questions about what do we owe working animals in the year of our Lord 2025, and what do they owe us? Because these horses, the horses used in thoroughbred racing, provide jobs for people. They provide a tremendous amount of economic impact, right? They provide agricultural jobs that don't exist otherwise, right? It's not just the trainer and the owner, it's the staff that cares for him. It's the hay farmer who's growing the food. It's the blacksmith who's putting the shoes on his feet. And so I wanted to kind of take a look at some of those big questions and ask, is the standard of care for racehorses up to scratch? Does it meet both the ethical standard that we should be meeting in 2025, and does it meet the public perception standard?
And in our remaining minutes, I really love, how deep you delve into this questions around standards of care. You really paint a really, compelling picture of this industry, zooming in on the fact that, it is a multinational gambling industry. You talk about how breeding is another big moneymaker in this industry. And of course, the tension between folks seeing horses as pets versus commodities. Talk to us about any reforms that you recommend, or experts that you've spoken with seem to be rallying around in an industry that is not on our radar as much as it should be.
So there's actually been like a huge positive change in thoroughbred horse racing in the last couple of years. In 2020, there was a piece of federal legislation passed that mandated federal oversight of welfare, safety, and medication practices in the industry. And it has had a really profound impact. There has been a 27% drop in fatalities on the racetrack just in the last year alone. That tells you two things. It tells you that change was possible. It tells you that the industry can absolutely do better by the animal, and that it is. There are elements of the industry that are also challenging that law. It has divided lower courts. It may actually go all the way to the Supreme Court. So it's possible that that law could be struck down. I think we are at a moment of kind of a pivot point for the industry, where the industry has to sort of make a decision about whether or not they're going to embrace the additional reforms and the additional costs necessary to better shield the animal from kind of the brute force of the marketplace, right? Or whether they're going to go back to sort of business as usual, where this animal was a well cared for, but really a livestock animal.
That's incredible. It's incredible. And you don't have to just take my word for it. Your colleague, Wolf Blitzer, over at CNN said, quote, I was on the edge of my seat. Death of a Racehorse is a serious piece of reporting, deeply researched and beautifully told. This isn't just a book about horse racing. It's a thriller-like read about money and power in America. I learned a lot. A very special thanks to Katie Bo-Lillis for writing this terrific book. I would add to that, thank you so much for opening our eyes just a little bit wider. I mean, just when we thought we knew everything there was to know about horse racing, you really take us deeper than we thought we needed to go.
There's so much more to this sport than I think meets the eye. And if I leave people sort of with one thing, it is that while the sport has had its problems and absolutely needs to address them, there are a great number of horsemen in this sport who really love the animal and are doing their best to try to create a more positive future for horse racing.
Well, thank you for doing your part to help build a more perfect union through horse racing. Our thanks to Katie Bo-Lillis, CNN's very own, also author of Death of a Racehorse, an American Story. Go out and pick it up. It is available in stores starting May 6th. More with A More Perfect Union when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York Attorney General Letitia James is suing to stop the Trump administration from dismantling the Health and Human Services Department.
And since taking office, this administration has fired scientists, closed labs, shuttered life-saving programs without rhyme, reason, or any legal authority.
Joined by 19 other attorneys general, she called the mass firings illegal and harmful to vulnerable groups. Rapper Jeezy could face jail time for not following his divorce agreement with Jeannie Mai. A judge says he did not turn over a 2021 Range Rover and warned that further noncompliance may result in incarceration. And a white New York correctional officer has pleaded guilty to felony manslaughter in the death of Robert Brooks, a 43-year-old Black inmate. Christopher Walrath is set to get 15 years for the brutal 2023 beating at Marcy Correctional. He's one of 6 officers charged. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
West LA, a crash on the 405 southbound at the 10. They're clearing it out of the carpool lane. Delays backing up from just about Moraga. Also, Lancaster, a wreck on the 14 northbound past Avenue L. 2 middle lanes have been blocked with a backup away from 10th Street. We're also heading out to the drive along the 210. This is in Pasadena. Eastbound slowing, it's heavy away from Mountain. Delays ahead to the 57 freeway. And I'm looking at Corona, 15 southbound, slowing down from Magnolia Avenue to Wybrick Road.
Are you sick of drying chlorinated water in your home? At LifeSource, they believe your health, your skin, and your hair deserve better. Enjoy delicious, clean water from every tap with a LifeSource water system. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Like LeBron, Clippers guard James Harden is facing a June 29 deadline to accept a player option for next season. Harden, who turns 36 in August, is scheduled to make $36 million next season with the Clippers. If Harden declines his player option, he can become a free agent. It will be interesting to see what kind of market will be out there for Harden after his disappointing performance Saturday in Game 7 at Denver. 7 points on 2 for 8 shooting. Harden still had a decent season with 22.8 points per game and 8.7 assists, which ranked 5th in the NBA. Less than 2 weeks after the NFL draft, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, and Shedeur Sanders ranked 1, 2, and 3 in jersey sales among NFL draft picks. Ward was the number 1 overall pick by the Tennessee Titans. Hunter was taken at number 2 by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sanders was not selected until the 5th round by Cleveland. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 and the California Black Chamber of Commerce invite you to the Small Business Development Workshop, How to Do Business with California Government, On Thursday, May 15th at Victory Park in Pasadena, 2575 Paloma Street. Get certified and register as a new bidder. Sell products and services to the state. Learn about pre-bid events and more. And it's all free. All you have to do is sign up at www.calbcc.org. That's www.calbcc.org. Registration for the Small Business Development Workshop, How to Do Business with California Government, begins at 9 a.m. and the workshop concludes at 1 p.m. on Thursday, May 15th at Victory Park in Pasadena, 2575 Paloma Street. This is a community call to action from the California Black Chamber of Commerce and KBLA Talk 1580.
During this time, it's important for everyone to know your rights. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution protects every one of us, regardless of immigration status. The 4th Amendment requires a judicial warrant to search your home. The 5th protects your right to remain silent, and the 6th gives you the right to an attorney. Just remember,
No warrant, no key. My privacy. You don't have to speak. No lawyer inside. Don't say a thing. Yeah, we all got right.
Hey, we all got right. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has work source centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm delighted to welcome back to the show Dr. Jocelyn Imani. She's the Senior Director of Black History and Culture at the Trust for Public Land. She is a storyteller. She is an educator. She is a community builder, and she is in demand. Dr. Jocelyn Imani, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me again. It's always good to be with you. Thank you.
It's always good to be with you. It's always good to also separate the fact from the fiction. And there's a lot of fiction out there. I know that you grew up enjoying public spaces like museums and libraries as much as I have. And
sure.
I know that you are as disturbed, if not more, that sacred space, these museums and libraries, these repositories for memories and for storytelling, may not be as accessible in the coming months and years. Give us an update on what is afoot, amongst all of the executive orders that we're hearing about and all the protests that we are seeing here in DC and around the country. Talk to us about the state of our access to museum and libraries today.
Well, first, I want to make sure I state that for all the listeners, for all the viewers, it is critically important to not be reactive to rumors, to hearsay, to focus. And even when you see an executive order or hear a lawmaker speak, or, whether it's on the news or on social media, it's very critically important to separate political theater from civics and from how laws are getting actually passed and what's actually being done. I think it is easy to become reactive and focused on just kind of foaming at the mouth, getting mad at everything. But the fact of the matter is public lands are not a red issue. They're not a blue issue. They're a purple issue. Every American deserves access to the outdoors. And the data shows that Americans on both sides of the political aisle across the board, they value their lands, they value access to those lands. And it is indeed a shared American value. So while there's a lot of discussion about the reduction of access, and there are some legitimate threats, I think not getting stuck on the top level layer in terms of the hearsay and the gossip and the rumors and misinformation, and really reading those executive orders, paying attention to what is actionable and what is just an idea, and then paying attention when it is something that is an actionable thing, whether we're talking about the sale of land or the disruption of a museum. Let's deal with the facts of it. And in that case, then we can deal with how do we get our legislators to move on our behalf.
So, I recently saw a story published by Vox.com. The headline read, "Trump wants to sell land that all Americans own. It should make you furious." Should it?
I think furious, you should care. Yeah, you should care. Because when you think about public lands, beyond just enjoyment, the public lands have everything to do with economics. They have everything to do with our shared national history, places for us to heal, for us to grow. If we just think about money, like if we just think about economics, public lands fuel a $1.2 trillion outdoor recreation economy. 1.2 trillion. There are 5 million jobs in the public lands industry. So the selling off of public land would ultimately disrupt us economically. Not to mention when you think about what stories are being told in public land, what do those, a place like Martin Luther King National Historical Park in Atlanta, or even a place like Yosemite or Yellowstone, they have health benefits for us. They have cultural benefits for us. They're how we understand who we are as Americans. So we have to care about them for so many reasons. So yeah, you should definitely care.
And not only is it a matter of just sort of, keeping public lands public, but, there are reports that the administration and its allies in Congress are looking to fast track drilling and mining and logging across these federal estates. And so I hear you loud and clear in terms of, we should care. But for our folks who are a little less familiar with the public land scape, if you will, talk to us, about how much of a reimagining of public lands might we see if we don't pay attention?
Well, one, I want to make sure I clarify for the audience that you may not be familiar with that phrase public land, but if you ever gone to a church picnic or a barbecue in the park, that is public land. Whether it's managed by your local city parks department, your state, or even federal lands, you've been enjoying public lands your entire life, whether or not you were conscious about it. And if we were to sell off those public lands and allow for development of housing, drilling, mining, not only do we not have places to recreate, to learn, to connect with one another, because that's really key. I want to pause there and say it's super. I have had some of the most transformative experiences in this country on public land, because when you're on the trail, people are not necessarily asking who you voted for or where your kids go to school. They just want to know where's the next mile marker. Have you seen the rest area? People, when you're on the trail, you're just on the trail. So that's number one. But then if we were to sell those lands, there are all types of climate and health hazards that we're running into. Public lands don't just allow us a place to stretch and recreate, but they oftentimes provide necessary tree canopy to help keep the surface level temperatures low. They inculcate some of our necessary rivers and streams that help keep our environment pure. We need that to help our air quality be okay, to help our water quality be okay. So if we were to sell it and overdevelop it, we're going to begin to immediately see health and climate hazards to not protecting our public lands.
Come forward. I want to get your take on this idea of housing on federal lands. A lot of folks say that this may be a sure way to ease the affordability crisis. There are folks who believe that your proponents that are presenting this false choice as if it's either, quote unquote, protecting and preserving our public lands or building more housing that we so desperately need. I want to get your hot take on this. And again, I really value our time to be able to separate the fact from the fiction, because, you could just be scrolling through social media and you're reading things that may not be in context. You're reading things that may feature people's hot take, but you're not hearing from experts in the field that have really studied this deeply. And so while we have Dr. Jocelyn Imani with us, we're going to drill deep more with Dr. Jocelyn Imani, the Senior Director of Black History and Culture at the Trust for Public Land. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least likely to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number and put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I am just delighted. Can you see my red undertone showing?
Yes.
I'm so delighted to be in conversation with my sister friend, Dr. Jocelyn Imani. She's Senior Director of Black History and Culture at Trust for Public Land. You know how we always want to be a space here to help folks separate the fact from the fiction, because we know particularly our audience seems to have a target on us. Certainly the focal point of a lot of mis and disinformation. So we're going to do our part to dispel that. Dr. Amani, I want to ask you your take on this. There are reports that Republicans are mulling the sale of some public land to help pay for this massive budget reconciliation bill advancing President Trump's agenda. It's unclear how big they'll be able to go, but because it's still in the early stages. But this is a serious discussion. It includes the sale of some lands around Western cities and national parks to build more housing. Why are we not hearing more about this as a part of this massive reconciliation bill that will impact the lives of ordinary Americans?
Well, I think part of the reason we're not hearing about this piece is because there's not a lot of details out yet. When the House Natural Resource Committee put out the first text around the reconciliation bill last week, it did not include land sale language. So far, we have not seen that. There's this rumor and we're hearing about it, but we've not seen that on the table. It is possible, and I give this encouragement to the audience, it is possible that part of the reason that land sale language was dropped had everything to do with citizens advocating to their lawmakers that they don't want to see that. I needed to be crystal clear. Public lands are beloved on both sides of the aisle. Two examples of recent successes in the world of public lands: the Great American Outdoors Act, which was done under Trump's first term, passed with bipartisan support, and then the Explore Act, which was passed under the Biden administration. Not only was that passed with bipartisan support, it passed unanimously. Those types of acts, and again, if you remember Biden's term, very few bills were getting passed unanimously, but all Americans care about public lands. So those types of funds, ultimately, those type of bills permanently fund things like the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership and allow tribes and other communities access to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Americans have shown time and time and time again that they want to keep our public lands fully staffed. They want them to be protected. They want to make sure that the resources are there. And I'll also just throw in a shameless plug for my colleagues at TPL because I'm so proud. The data also shows that when presented with the option, Americans, both sides of the aisle, vote to raise their own taxes if it goes toward the benefit of public lands. With this past November election, my colleagues at TPL crossed the threshold of $100 billion with a B dollars generated through ballot measures and bonds since 1996 through our conservation finance team, showing across the country in communities, rural and urban, and somewhere in between, Western states, Eastern states, Southern states, that they care about access to public land. So we have to keep articulating our desires, keep articulating how we want to see those lands protected. And I think we may be able to keep applying pressure to make sure that we do not sell any of our public lands.
So, Dr. Monty, it's very clear that we, the people, we care about our public lands, but we also care about affordable housing. The New York Times reporting that the Trump administration is now trying to follow through on a promise that he made on the campaign trail to make housing more affordable. Last month, federal officials created a task force that would identify and release federal land that could be used for housing development. Is this a false choice? Protect public land or build affordable housing?
It is. I think it is. I mean, so we've been hearing this same conversation back and forth. It has not had a lot of details on it. One of my own personal questions that I have is about like the areas where we need the most affordable housing are often super urban, super well densely populated areas. The public lands that have the most space are not necessarily urban. So I just have questions. I don't necessarily have condemnation yet or consternation because we haven't had those details come out. But I'd be curious, and I encourage other people to be curious as the administration continues to formulate this plan, to let's get some of the details. What public lands are we selling and why? Where are we talking about building this housing? And does that work? Because I don't think it has to be a binary. I think we can protect public lands and build affordable housing.
And I think the folks that are proponents of just selling public lands, I think they make it sound a lot easier than it really is. The New York Times reported that most of the federal government's land, it lacks the necessary water and sewer infrastructure to support residential communities. And there certainly have been environmental groups who've also voiced concerns over the administration's intent to sell public lands because of its potential effect on the wildlife habitat. And so how much of this is just sort of, okay, that sounds good. That sounds like a solution, but the devil's in the details.
Correct.
And even if Congress, voted to sell the land, the implementation of that could take years and years, couldn't it?
It absolutely could take years and years. And sometimes, and the juice may not be worth the squeeze. It may sound good. But I think about when you mentioned that piece about infrastructure, it made me think of Nicodemus National Historic Site, which, again, shameless plug for Nicodemus. It is an amazing site. It is the oldest and only continually operating Black settlement west of the Mississippi that still exists. It's now a part of our National Park Service system. And there are still descendants from the original settlers of Nicodemus that live in that town. And they just got proper sewer recently, I think within the last handful of years, because up until recently, that town was on a septic system. Mm-hmm. So, because if you think about the protection of lands for the enjoyment of of all Americans, it's not set up for regular residential use. Even a space like, I think about Medgar Murley Evers' home National Monument in Jackson, Mississippi. The gap between when Tougaloo College transferred ownership of that site to the National Park Service and when that site was then opened from the National Park Service to the public was a many-year gap, because you have to transform a residential home into something that can be for public use. Mm-hmm. So similarly, it's just not the same, the public land market and the residential market, and it takes a minute. So that may cost millions of dollars to do, which is why it's easier if we just retain them for public benefit. And I will mention that the Trust for Public Land is a national leader in this work. We've worked with 25 Congresses and 9 presidential administrations on bipartisan support of protecting public land. So we've lived through this many times before. It is not an either or. We can protect public lands and work with our folks and communities across the country to deliver other communal benefits on the ground.
Dr. Imani, in our remaining minutes with you, share with us where and how we can tap in to the work that you're leading at the Trust for Public Land.
So to get specifics on what we're doing, the website is TPL, like Trust Public Land, tpl.org/BHAC, like Black History and Culture. That's where you can find out about the work that I lead. But honestly, I would encourage, yes, there's TPL, and we're one of many national organizations committed to this work. But honestly, please tap in with your local lawmakers. Pay attention to what's happening in your local parks department. Pay attention to what's happening in your state Department of Natural Resources, or think about who manages those public land agencies on the state level. And similarly, on the federal level, it's not just the Department of Interior, which has the Park Service, Bureau of Land Management, others, but it's USDA, it's Army Corps of Engineers. There's so many folks committed to public land across all levels of government. And we want to make sure that you're aware these things can't move if you don't let them. So stand up and protect your public lands for sure.
That's right. And for the folks out there that enjoy, going to the park, that enjoy hitting the trail, that enjoy a good hike, if you enjoy it as much as we do, right, then, we've got to do our part to make sure that those experiences are available to the next generation and the next generation, right? 1,000%. And, especially as, our folks in LA are just beginning the long journey of recovery following the LA wildfires. I remember hiking in Eaton Canyon,
Exactly. Right? Or even during COVID, how much did the access to public land maintain our sanity collectively? Because we could go somewhere and go for a walk and still maintain social distancing. We need our public lands. All of us do.
Well, we need the public land. We also need leaders like you on the front lines. Our thanks to Dr. Jocelyn Imani, Senior Director for Black History and Culture at the Trust for Public Lands. Look, we'd say to every listener, every leader, learner, and listener, every show, do what you can from where you are with what you have. And public lands are treasured. They're worth fighting for. They're our birthright, as Dr. Imani has said. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. In our next hour, we'll be joined with Simone Sanders, the co-host of MSNBC's The Weeknight. We're going to be getting the full scoop on what we can expect on her new show, In Prime Time. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York Attorney General Letitia James is suing to stop the Trump administration from jail time for not following his divorce agreement with Jeannie Mai. A judge says he did not turn over a 2021 Range Rover and warned that further noncompliance may result in incarceration. And a white New York correctional officer has pleaded guilty to felony manslaughter in the death of Robert Brooks, a